All right, my next guest is Dr. Rick Diamond, story healer, teacher, retreat master, pastor of 12 years, 17 years as an open faith community minister in Austin, author of Wrestling with God, father, husband, and my favorite, every morning you're posting stuff about the human experience on Instagram, and you're one of the top people I love to watch every morning. And so I appreciate you joining me today.
Oh
If,
man, thank you so much. It's my pleasure. I'm so happy to be here.
if you wouldn't mind just kind of introducing yourself a little bit to people and how you got into this story healing genre, I guess.
Yeah. How did I develop story healing? Super simple intro is I grew up a very good boy, being nice and doing all the things I was supposed to do. And it was a chaotic family of origin with divorce and violence and abuse. And I was just trying to figure it out. And my way of figuring it out was to be wonderful and funny and sweet and overcompensate. I have had so many conversations with so many human beings who have had that same experience when they were in the childhood they were in. How did they manage to make sense of their experience? How did they figure out what was safe, what wasn't safe? And they come up with strategies, right? Which we all do. Mine was, grow up and be good and went to church and got married in college and went to college and did all the stuff. And for the first 10 years, I was a college English teacher and I fell in love with the moment when somebody goes, "Oh, wait a minute, does that apply to me?" I just loved that. Like that whole thing where somebody would say, I know we have to learn about sentence structure or paragraphs or what's a poem, but I mean, like, is this for me? Can I apply this to my life? And I just, I became like Robin Williams at Dead Poet Society. We were standing on the desks and meeting outside and meeting in groups and throwing everything out and starting over. And I absolutely loved that. And then in my late 20s, I started having these really meaningful spiritual experiences I could not explain, and I didn't know what was going on. And I think that the seeds of those had always been there, like my whole life. And I asked a pastor friend, what's happening? And he said, you are having an opportunity to think about faith and life and philosophy and who you are and the human condition differently than you have before. And he gave me a reading assignment, just a thing to go chew on. And it just opened my mind. And I started reading and thinking and devouring everything I could about thinking about faith differently, about thinking about community differently, about thinking about what human beings are going through differently. I went to seminary and I was a pastor for 10 years. And the whole time I was still involved in that moment where people say, wait a minute, is this for me? Like, is this about me? How do I make this about me? And I was not very well behaved. And, I wasn't always a good boy, but there was this part of me that just loved what I sensed was happening in people's hearts. Like when somebody would awaken and say, I don't know if I believe that anymore, or I really want to show up in my life in a different way, or I really want to be here, especially working with men. For me, that was the thing that really turned me on was that men in our culture have been so sort of conditioned to be this thing that we are supposed to be based on expectations. And that's true for women as well. Women that I work with have talked about the expectations and the burden and the heaviness that's on them. That's certainly on them too. But I really got lit up working with men. And so I started doing men's work and did a lot of like drum circles and feeling feelings. And I didn't know I was angry.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? And so I got to
Yeah.
process anger and grief and all that stuff. And then ended up founding this really funky faith community that was everybody throwing in their ideas and open source and collaborative. And I just kept going. And so out of all of that, over years and years and years of practice, the thing that I loved was when somebody says, how can I make this about my own experience? And so when I left ministry after 30 years total, I kind of wandered for a little while and did a lot of deep reading in Western and Eastern spirituality. I have been doing a lot of indigenous spiritual work as well and studying the masters from the mystic traditions all over the world. And I just developed this practice where I sit with people and say, so what is the thing that's in front of you? And what is the story that led you here? And where do we go from here?
Perfect. I love it. My dad was a pastor, so I grew up as a pastor's kid. And so
Bless you, bless you, bless you.
it was interesting, but I can understand where you're coming from. One of the conversations I had with my dad, I'm 44, but thinking about Christianity and the way it's delivered to a lot of people, the whole story that I have learned my whole life is, if you don't believe this, you're going to hell and burning for all time and eternity. And
Right.
I'm thinking, What about those people that have never heard the story? What's going to happen to them? And I never did get a very good answer for that. And so it kind of,
There isn't a good answer for that. I mean, there's
no,
no, there's not. Right.
yeah,
And I mean,
I'm a spiritual person, and I believe in God and a higher power 100%, but I think there's a lot more going on than we can grasp. So,
yeah, me too. Me too. And the best part for me, and this totally tracks with what you were just talking about, Tim, when somebody would come into that, especially when I was in the setting that was much more collaborative and open source and creative, and people were welcome to ask their questions and people were welcome not to quote unquote believe.
yeah,
The number of times somebody said, if I don't believe that, will I go to hell? If I have this question, am I okay? Does God love me? Is there a God? I'm not sure there's a God. And we all just got to sit together and say, great, that's okay. Whatever that question is.
hmm
And for me, the more I was willing to let go of all of the definitions, the more into God I went, if that
yep,
makes any sense. I
yep.
felt more awake spiritually and more alive just in being with people and growing and developing and learning and stretching. And so for me, it wasn't like I left, it's that it grew, it evolved, it changed.
Yep. In December, I went to Costa Rica and did ayahuasca. So I'm a veteran, and I don't know if you have any experience with that, but
I do.
okay. Okay.
I'm
So
down.
that's when I got to meet God for the first time, face to
Hello.
face.
Yeah.
And your story has resonated with me so much because you always say, it's the human experience, or we're living in these meat suits. And so I'm going through this full experience with dying and being born again, physically and metaphorically. And I mean, Jesus showed up and I'm talking to him, I'm yelling at him, and he's there, and I'm like, hey, I'm trying to get his attention. He's just always around. And after probably 4 times over the course of who knows how long, I scream at him. I say, what's the point of all of this? What are we doing here? What is the point of it? And what did he say? He said, it's the human experience. And that's all he said to me. And so when I saw your story and you'd say that all the time to me, I'm like mind blown.
That's it.
And it makes perfect sense. It's just,
Hello.
we're living this human experience.
We're to be here. We're to drink it all in. The incredible gift of being a soul incarnated in these bodies, in these moments where we can have feelings and we can go through pain and we can go through joy and we can love and we can lose. We're sleepwalking, right? It's the Matrix. Like, it's totally the Matrix all the time.
100%.
And so when people awaken, like, that's what I was picking up on all those years ago when I would see a student, the light would go on over their head. I would just be like, oh, you're waking up. I'm waking up. We're all waking up. What's happening
Yep.
right now? And there's a bunch of people around us, as we know, who are not going to wake up. They don't want to wake up in this incarnation. And, I mean, from the Buddha to Jesus to all the great wisdom teachers, like, I'm here to help people awaken, and not everybody wants to awaken. Don't not awaken just because the people around you don't want to awaken. Like, that's right in front of you, right? Let's have the whole experience, the whole thing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I really do feel like there's kind of a shift in this day and age. A lot more people are starting to open their eyes. It's weird. I haven't seen this, maybe it's just I'm in a new circle of people, but I'm seeing, just based on my experiences, have helped other people, and, they're opening their eyes and they're going, wait a minute, this isn't all it's chopped up to be. So it's much bigger.
A wide scale awakening that's happening around the world. I really, really see that. I think you're
Yep.
exactly right. Yeah.
Can you talk about your experiences with plant
Absolutely.
medicine or anything like that?
Absolutely. For me, part of why this tracks too, I think that our souls have this sense of what it is that we're supposed to be experiencing. And then we have our own free will within that, where we're making choices about, well, I try this, I want to do this, I want to whatever. But like the big nodal points, the things that are really important for what it is that we're here for, I think those are going to happen one way or the other. The spirit's going to, the universe, the angels, whoever's helping out, the ancestors,
All of the
they're going
above.
to work it out, right? They're going to make it happen. And for me, a nodal point was when I left ministry, like I was talking about. I went through my wife and I moved from Austin out to Santa Fe for a couple of years and went through a reset. It was really, really beautiful, and it was hard. And, I went through a big ego death around, well, wait a minute, I'm not a pastor. I mean, I wasn't very a well-behaved pastor or a conventional pastor, but it was still like my gig, it was a job.
Yeah.
But So what am I? Like, what am I now? Which was huge, huge, huge. We moved back to Austin. This is about 2 years ago. And a dear friend had said to me, look, there's some stuff that's going on in you after all this men's work, after all this emotional opening up your heart, after doing 12 steps work and therapy and really, really good work. There's probably something in there in your heart that you haven't quite reached yet, even with all your meditation, all your spiritual practice, all of the study. And it just resonated. And I said, okay. And my wife, Christina, whose last name is Wisdom, Christina Wisdom. So, I mean,
Perfect.
hello, perfect.
Yes.
She and I are both sober people. And so we really did a lot of research and discernment around, is this the right fit for me? And I really wanted to be intentional about it in a good way, as opposed to, I'm just going to go out in the backyard and eat shrooms and stare at the moon and see what happens. Like for me, this was a person who was inviting me into a ceremonial setting with a facilitator who's been trained. Like this was going to be an intentional weekend where we went through a whole process with teaching and guiding. And so for me, I just realized this, okay, there was one of those moments where I thought, if I miss this, I'm going to miss something important. And I got really freaked out about, everybody before they go have some big shift, stuff comes up, whether it's a men's retreat or the first time you go to a 12-step meeting or, whatever. And I got really, really scared. And I'm really happy that I just went ahead and went anyway. Went to another city, to some people's house. And I had a beautiful, beautiful experience and I just finished writing my book about story work. And I tell this story in the book. When my mother, who was really unhappy most of her life, would get really upset. My parents were in college and they had to get married because they got pregnant. And when she would get really mad, she would scream, "I should have aborted you," like everybody told me to.
Wow.
And we go around the circle, it's a dozen people or whatever. And the facilitator, asked what your intention is and the whole thing. And I was like, I don't even want to be here. I have no intention right now. Just that I'm out. She was like, whatever. Yeah, I got you. Comes across the room, gives me the capsule. It's very simple. It was a plant medicine compound, not straight ayahuasca. And so it had some stuff in it that was about heart and mind and body and spirit. And she had done some discerning around what was the right fit for each person in that container, in that mode, in that modality. And she said, we're going to go into your heart. We're going to go into your spirit and we're going to see what happens. And I was like, oh crap. Okay, great. Okay, here we go. I mean, I came this far, flew all this way. And I thought nothing's happening. And then, man, I dropped in hard and I went into another room and sat by myself. I was really, really quiet. And I had this beautiful vision where I was a baby the day I was born. I was looking up at my mother who was trying to feed me and who was trying to take care of me. And she was terrified. And I was looking at her and feeling all this compassion for her. And I was looking at my little young dad who's 20 years old, pacing back and forth, scared to death. And I had all this compassion for him. And then I heard a voice, which I recognized as my higher self or God or me or whatever, said, she could never have aborted you. You chose to come here. There's more work to do.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
incredible.
everything just flowed from there. Yeah. And I've done that 6 more times since then in 2 years. Yeah. It's really meaningful.
Yeah.
Really meaningful.
Plant medicine is incredible. And, I've had kind of a similar experience where all of a sudden I'm looking at myself. There is no time and space. We can just go back and forth into these areas. And, but yeah, it's incredible.
When you say that you felt like you were somewhere else or that you were aware that you were in a different space, I mean, all of the mystics throughout history, the Indian yogis and Jesus and Buddha and all of these Native American medicine women and medicine men, they are able to pull that veil back and see the thing that in that experience you got to experience this little piece of, which is to see, whoa, there's so much more going on than just what I'm perceiving in my 5 senses. It's real. It's really, really real.
It is real. Yeah. So I travel all the time and this is my side hustle. But I remember sitting in a bar by myself because I'm on the road all the time and it's miserable. I don't like it. I'm away from my family. And I remember just sitting there being miserable and just feeling like something was watching me. And then months later, I go down, I do ayahuasca. This is in July. And I'm back in that spot right there. But this time I'm looking at myself, at me sitting at the bar. It was me picking up on me looking at myself. And, in that moment, I'm just like, You're
Yes.
going to be all right. It's going to work out. Like, just keep going, and
So you were the thing that was watching you.
I
Yeah.
was.
You and your higher self, you and
Yes.
your eternal self.
Yep.
You were
Gives me
looking
chills
after
just
you.
saying it.
Dude, that's
It
so beautiful.
incredible stuff. So, you know, based on all of the journeys, I've gone down there 2 times since December, two
Mhm.
week-long experiences. But I mean, just the opening of your eyes and your mind, and like, that's why I've jumped into this. It's like, I want to help people.
Do you mind me asking you a question?
Yeah.
For you, what opened? Like when I think about what opened for me was a sense of that message that I heard from my higher self, which has been echoed in journeys since then in the last 2 years, and also has been echoed in the more I'm aware, like that message keeps coming from people, from situations, from little hints, from an Instagram reel, from a book I opened, from, you know what I mean? From deep intuition, like that door is open, and the door is there's something happening that's important that you need to be part of. Like that's what happened in that moment for me. And it keeps happening and keeps happening. And now I can trace it all the way back from when I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
That opened for me in a way that I really hadn't been able to connect the dots before. What opened or changed for you?
I don't really know exactly what opened, but I know during my first experience, so I was in the military. I served in Iraq, lost my brother. I was in law enforcement for 10 years and dealt with some really terrible stuff. And so I've been suffering with PTSD for 20 years. And really, I got to the point where it was like, I cannot do this anymore. I'm
Yeah.
broken. And it's a weird story, but my brother in law is on the board of directors at RIB, Life Investment Center in Costa Rica.
Okay.
I'd heard about ayahuasca from Joe Rogan and stuff like
Hmm.
that, but
Sure.
no experience. So, I mean, what opened was he just sent me a message and said, "Hey, would you like to come down and do this? I think you'd be a great candidate." And I thought about it, and I was scared as hell. But during that experience, the first time, it was weird. I would see myself throughout my life on this path. And it's like all these little things that were happening at the time that were maybe terrible experiences, or
Mhm.
you didn't understand them at the time. We're all on this path that we have, it's not, I think we have free will, but we're being guided, whether
I
it's
think
by
so too. Hmm.
ourselves or a higher power, all of the above. And so that opened the door for me. And I've always felt like I was meant to help people. I've always had a love to help other people. And I get calls all the time from guys randomly like, "Hey, I'm just going through a hard time." And I'm like, why am I that guy? But I love it. I love to help people. And so,
It's
uh,
great. That's great. I mean, the fact that you are modeling the transformation of trauma into being present for other people. I mean, that's so beautiful. One of my dear friends is a facilitator in this work. And maybe the second journey that I went on, a bunch of us were sitting by a campfire outside. Everybody's deep dropped in. Everybody's really doing their process. The facilitator's over here doing a thing. And then this woman is sitting over by the fire. And I look over and I say, "What are you doing?" And she's super calm. Like she says, "I'm just alchemizing trauma into wisdom." And it's, yes,
because
you are. Like when we are willing to be changed by what the gifts that want to come to help us, whether it's a deep practice, whether it's plant medicine, whether it's men's work, whether it's meditation, whatever's good, right? When we're willing to be transformed by it, what comes out of that for me and my experience, and you're a great example in the story you just told, is that it becomes about love. It becomes about help. It becomes about being of service. It becomes about healing the world, man. That's what we're here for.
100%. There's so many guys out there, especially guys who don't have an outlet. And there's so much trauma that so many people have experienced. But it seems like men, and they just go through life miserable and unsatisfied. And it's like all they need, is love and an outlet, somebody to
Yeah.
talk to, a
Yes.
community of people. And
Yeah.
so many guys are missing that.
Oh, it's really, we're in the desert about that. Do you know what I mean? And I have a men's circle. There's 8 of us, and we sit in my living room every Tuesday night. And when I first created it last year, I thought, okay, so what do I need to be teaching? And what do I need to we are each other's medicine. Like I have
Yeah.
one little topic to get us started, and then we just are all in community and hearing each other, and men can really, really say the thing that's in here. So, I mean, I've been really wondering about and digging into, and I'm aware of really good men's work that's out there and men's resources that are out there. And I'm just wondering about an online, as opposed to just men sitting in my living room, like
Yeah.
have an online circle as well. Men need the ability to be really, really real with each other. And this culture does not make that safe at all. It's the exact
No,
opposite.
it definitely doesn't. So retreat master, what do your retreats
Over
encompass?
the I mean, over the years, what I really fell in love with working with men and doing men's retreats through our little faith community, but I've done all kinds of retreats over the years. And now the ones that I'm moving into are, I'm doing one in January in Wimberley outside Austin. Is called On the Path Home. And the idea is we're going to do, part of it's going to be meditation where we're just sitting and doing guided meditation. And we're going to have music. There's a woman who's this brilliant breath work and sound bath facilitator. She's going to do a piece for us, and then I'm also going to use a fairy tale to guide us through a process that is the human condition where we feel abandoned, lost, we get it all together, that falls apart. Then we discover our true character, like our true strength. And then we find out that we know the way home and we're good. And we're just going to do that over the course of a weekend together. And it's going to be co ed. But a couple of men have said, could we have a men's retreat too, man? I may not be able to open up in front of women the way that I can in our
Yeah.
men's circle, which I totally get, makes sense. And then that On the Path Home retreat is also a couple of folks in Nashville and a couple of folks in Boulder are asking me to come and do it there as well. So I'm going to take it on the road in 2025. So I'm looking forward to that.
Perfect. Is this your full-time gig?
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
it.
So I have clients that I work with one-on-one, people that just find me online. And then
Yeah.
I have my Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, which I absolutely love. Love the
Yeah.
community that's grown out of that. People's comments are so beautiful. And, like go through a big election and people want to process and they want to have
Yep.
comments and they want to talk and people
Yep.
message me. And I absolutely love it because I just get to be with people in whatever their process is. And then I also have my men's circle that I work with. I'm actually this weekend finishing a book and it's going to come out next year. So the other thing that I'm going to be offering in 2025 is take different parts of the book and the ideas of story work, which is the practice that I use, and take a particular practice within story work and do a 6-week online group with maybe 20 or 25 people. And we do a whole process together and we learn the tools and we interact with each other. And then that becomes a community too. So that'll be fun.
That's amazing. You just love your story. And so, watching your videos every morning and you're speaking to me, especially, but all these guys out there, how do you come up with this stuff?
This is a great question. Thank you. Thank you. For me, partly it's because I've been doing really meaningful spiritual work, breaking down things and learning things and relearning things and starting over for a long time. Part of it too is that I pay attention to what people tell me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when somebody's going through their process, there's a woman I'm working with right now who is going through cancer. And she said, "Oh, I want us to meet over a series of weeks. I want to change my story. I used to think I just had to be a survivor and be resilient and be strong and bear my wounds. And these are all my scars." And she said, going through cancer, I'm like, I don't want to be a survivor. I want something else, but I don't know what it is. And so she's going through this process of saying, well, what do I want instead? A couple of weeks ago, we were in the session and she said, oh, wait a minute. I know what it is that I want. I want to claim that my whole story is sacred. My whole story is beautiful. Not look at all my wounds, but like who I am and how I got here. And everything that brought me here is beautiful. It was this really powerful reframing. So whenever anybody's talking about their experience, I'm just paying close attention to what's transformative for people and what's meaningful for people. And then I just look for opportunities to share that, however that works out. If it works out that there's a course that's available that we can do, great. And also, I'm like super open to invitation. Like one of the groups, the group in Boulder, they just said, would you come here? I'm like, sure. What do you
Yes.
want to do? I'm coming. Yeah.
I love it. So unfortunately, I have a handful of people in my life that have been diagnosed with cancer and are just going through it and they're battling spiritually and physically. A lot of people are not open to, you know, to talk about any of this stuff. They're just shut the door. They don't want to talk about it. I mean, you've been in this practice for so long with helping people.
Yeah.
How would a person like me who knows like this would definitely help you if you would just give it a shot? You got any recommendations on
Yeah.
a guy like me?
No, I mean, seriously, dude, it's really about being with. Like when I train spiritual directors, my first piece of advice for them is just to be with. I may think that I know exactly what somebody else needs, but maybe I'm wrong. It may be that I don't know what the right work for them is because, as you were talking about a few minutes ago, our souls have mapped out the possibilities and the steps and the connections that are in front of us. And it may be that the connection is not ready yet. All I can do is shine the light that I have, be authentic with what I have. Like, this is the thing that's meaningful for me. And then if somebody is attracted to that, we're about attraction, not promotion. We're not going out and advertising. We're just being, the people who are in this work. Like, how do you find the best therapist? If somebody recommends them, right? From their own
Yeah.
experience. If somebody's going through something really difficult and you have a sense of what's possible, model what is possible by being that thing that is embodying what is possible in terms of the healing from whatever they've gone through. And then you just are that light. You're just being that. At some point when they're ready, they're going to say, didn't you do that thing with the thing when you went to coast? Where did you go to you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's part of it is just being willing to like wait it out and be there and be present. And like, here's the really, I want to add this one thing. Here's the thing that's really, really important that Hinduism and Buddhism have taught me more so than Christianity. Somebody else's path is not my business.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like they're on their path. And my job is to simply love and be present and be alongside whomever in whatever state they're in and trust that God's got them. They're in their process. So
Yeah.
it's a both and, right? On the one hand, you want to offer the insights that you have, the healing that you found, the really beautiful practice that you found, the resource that you found. And on the other hand, it's also like, and maybe that's not for you today, in which case I'll still be around. I'll still be your friend. I'll be checking on you. I'm here. Who knows what seed you've planted or who knows how you've illuminated something for them that may need a day or a week or a year to sort of percolate for a while before it's ready to show itself.
I love that. I have had people who, not these particular fellows, but some other people who have been watching me the last, 6 to 8 months, and they have reached out and they have said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And
Yeah.
some of these people have actually gone down and got some healing themselves, and it's been incredible to see. And so
Mhm.
I guess just being a light for others, living your own path and bringing people along for the journey who want to come and experience healing. That's
I
the
think
best we
that's
could
it.
do.
I think
Yeah.
that's it. And I mean, people can tell when somebody's trying to sell them something. And people can also tell when somebody's authentic, when somebody's just saying, this is my experience. This is what is meaningful for me. And we do get kind of caught by, and we're conditioned to be caught by advertising and what's fake and what's packaged well. I mean, that we fall for it a lot. But at the deeper level, there's a part of us that says, wait a minute, I want what she's embodying over there. How do I find that? And I found plant medicine 2 years ago at exactly the right time. If it had
Yeah.
come into my life 2 years before that, it wouldn't have been time. So
Yeah.
I believe that things open for us, friendships open for us. The book we're supposed to read comes to us when it's time.
Man, I think you'd be the perfect speaker down at Rhythmia. Honestly, I don't know if you've looked into it, but
But I'm
it's
in.
an incredible place. It's a licensed medical ayahuasca facility. They have doctors on site. It's a beautiful place. I don't work for them, but I just had such a great experience that I was like, oh man, I got to share this place with everybody. But,
Absolutely.
it's unfortunate that in the States, they make it very hard for veterans or anybody to get access to these medicines that are just changing lives. Hopefully
I mean,
that will
all the
change.
research out there is so clear that this is life saving, that it's a way for people to heal that has not been widely accessible. And the bureaucratic red tape and all the stuff we're going through, it's just nuts. For me, especially for people with PTSD, whether it's through military service or through law enforcement or through a chaotic childhood like
Yeah,
mine or through abuse or through whatever. Anything that we can do that will help heal somebody's heart and their mind, let's do it. Let's open all those
absolutely.
doors. I'm for it. Come on.
I have a little bit of hope for the future. I know that Kennedy's a proponent of this, and
I've heard.
a lot of these guys out there, you may not agree or disagree with the election results, but at least I think some of the guys on board are going to help push some of this stuff through. I'm excited about that because so many people in general need help with this
Yeah.
medicine.
Yeah.
So,
Whatever we can do to make it more accessible in a way that works for people and is healthy for people, let's get on with it. Because this is wisdom that has been around for thousands of years throughout the world. And again, I was joking earlier, but I mean, there is something to the idea of the retreat that you went to that was facilitated and is supervised and is safe,
yes.
which is really important. Right. And sometimes people just want to eat magic mushrooms and stare at the moon, which is perfectly fine too. But for me, I was on and continue to be on a healing journey. And so
Yes.
part of what is important for me is the container and the way in which the teaching is done and the support is done. And I want there to be more of that for more people.
Yep, 100%. So the place I went, I mean, I'm a kind of a big dude. I'm 6'4", 260. So, being on ayahuasca in somebody's backyard, that's not good for me because these people will definitely tackle you and tie you up if they have to. It doesn't happen often, but that's what I
just in
need.
case. Right.
I need that safety net, It's incredible stuff. I mean, life still happens and things still happen. I'm far from perfect, but as far as the trauma and the loss of my brother and all this stuff that I dealt with, I know those things happened, but they definitely do not affect me like they used to. It's like a clean slate. It's like, yes, that happened, but the anxiety and the stress and just the turmoil you go through. I mean, I stopped taking antidepressants.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
incredible.
Absolutely. The thing that when I read Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, and I did all the research that I wanted to do so that I could really ground into this practice for myself over the months that followed, the idea that indigenous and old and mystical traditions, Jesus and his people included, and the Old Testament prophets included, that what they're tying into is this idea that we are spiritual beings who are having this human experience. And if we can come back to the spiritual part of ourselves, the eternal part of ourselves, then we can take our trauma, our emotions, our experience, our thoughts. It's almost like we can look at them as opposed to being stuck in them. And for
Yep.
me, that's the practice too that's been really helpful, is to be able to say, and I really love Michael Singer's book, The Untethered Soul, which is really helpful about this. Byron Katie's work has been helpful about this. Just being able to look at this emotion that I'm having. I'm not this emotion. This trigger
Yeah.
that's just come up for me. I'm not this trigger. I'm having this trigger, but that's not who I am. Like there's a part of me that is true regardless of this thing that's happening in me or around me. That, in working with lots and lots of people, when they can get to that place, the thing that you were just talking about for yourself is, okay, yes, I know this happened and I know I'm having this experience right now, but I can manage this. Like I can remember who I am. It's a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate what you do and your stories every morning. Today's the first day we've ever talked, but I feel like I connected with you somehow, and
Oh
you
man,
reaching
thank
out to
you.
me
Thank you.
it meant so much to me, and I really
Oh,
do appreciate all you do.
I'm happy for what you're doing, man. I want you to keep doing it. I mean, the fact that you, as I was saying about my friend, I'm alchemizing my trauma into serving and caring about the world and helping. That's the good stuff. Like that's
Yeah,
it. And so if anybody wants to work with me, just find me at drrickdiamond.com. That's it. And that's my handle too on all my social media stuff is just Dr. Rick Diamond. And I'm out there doing my thing and you can find me.
awesome, and I'll tag you and everything, and add your links to the video. But I really do appreciate your time today and sharing your healing journey. And man, I love what you're doing.
Thank you so
So
much, Tim. I really honor you for it. Thanks.